Director, I'd like to echo the encomiums of my colleagues about how good the process has been working with you from the first time you got together with us a year and a quarter ago. It's been a very much of a two-way dialogue. You've clearly listened to us, and you've taught us a good deal. I think that in the spirit of that Socratic process that you've set in motion, I'd like to pursue one issue that really does trouble me. I came into this commission riding in, as they say, on a pumpkin cart from the country, believing it was a no-brainer that we should go to an MI5. And you have given us all a lot to think about in that regard. But there's one issue that I'm particularly sensitive, having wrestled with the culture of the admirals for 6 years. I know the strength, both good and bad, of a great tradition and a deeply embedded culture. And the FBI has that kind of elite culture. And it's a law enforcement culture. And time and again, we've had witnesses from FBI come before us privately and publicly, and they recite the mantra, which they believe, at a certain level, that you have laid out as your priorities. But you then scratch them, and out comes statements from more than just a few, like one of a recent FBI witness who said, and I quote, "When we do our intelligence in the FBI, it should be forensic intelligence. It should be based on evidence. It must be based on fact that will bear the scrutiny of law that can be looked at by a jury and a judge." And it's not just one person. We had 3 witnesses over the last 2 days who in effect echoed the same thing. Many of us on the commission have been hung up on the Cole case because it's a very interesting case study of how the process works, and not unique, because I lived through exactly the same thing in 1983 on the Beirut issue. There's an attack, everybody knows who done it. The day it happens, everybody knows. When we ask why then wasn't the President Clinton told who done it, why then 4 months later wasn't President Bush told? And the answer we got back from 3 authoritative witnesses was, we had to wait until we created the evidence or gathered the evidence that could get an indictment. Now, many of us were incredulous to hear that from 3 very senior officials, but that's what I mean by culture. It turns out, as the Attorney General testified, there wasn't a finding, and our own staff had found that out a long time ago, till August, after the October attack. In the meantime, opportunities were lost. And I worry that if there isn't some corrective, that the culture will time and again suppress the kind of rapid advising of decision makers that is essential in against an agile opponent. So I guess my question is, if there is some halfway position here, if we don't go, and I'm not sure, we might not still recommend something like MI5, but if we were to go to a strengthened DCI or a DNI, a National Intelligence Coordinator, would you think it would be acceptable or wise to adopt the practice, for instance, that Mo Baginski's former agency has? It's a part of the Defense Department, reports to the Secretary of Defense, but the DCI has an equal say in hiring the head of the intelligence unit. and has a say in the firing of the head of the intelligence unit. So could it be acceptable for that new DCI, empowered DCI, to share the role with you of naming the head, firing the head, and allocating budget priorities, and agreeing on things like IT programs and paradigms? So that's my question.
Okay, let me, if I could, address a few aspects of that you talked to with regard to the coal and the distinction between evidence and intelligence. Prior to September 11th, I believe that much of the government was in the law enforcement mindset. We addressed terrorism as a law enforcement issue. And consequently, the information that we developed would be developed in cases so we can indict somebody and bring them back. Since September 11th, that has changed dramatically. We all, myself included. I mean, I was a prosecutor before. My natural inclination prior to September 11th is look in the courtroom. Today, I understand the importance of getting information to the policymakers so that decisions can be made far outside the ambit of a courtroom in order to respond to attacks. I would not dismiss, though, the ability and the rigor that FBI agents bring to looking at a set of facts. If there's one concern I have about intelligence, it is that often there are statements made about an uncorroborated source with indirect access, and then there is a stating of a particular fact. Well, to know whether that is well-founded or not, you have to know what the motivation of that source is. Were they paid? Do they have a grudge? Do they have? And what we bring to the process is an important focus on facts that I do not think should necessarily be dismissed. I know we've talked about the coal. I do believe it's important for us that whenever there is an incident, any intelligence that we get, any information on that incident, automatically ought to go to the CIA, ought to go to the President so they can make decisions as to what to do. An example would be the intelligence that had come in on La Belle Disco bombing back in the 1980s, I think, which gave President Reagan sufficient information to undertake an immediate attack. We all want to respond quickly. I will give you one experience that I had when I was working on Pan Am 103 and working with the families of Pan Am 103. There was an intelligence briefing that I received early on as to who was responsible for Pan Am 103. And that briefing indicated it was a country other than Libya. If the President had moved on that briefing against that country, when we come to find out as we scrutinize facts that it was not that country but was Libya, we would have done substantial harm not only to that country but to our credibility around the world. And so I think there has to be a balance between the information we get and the foundation of that information. The last point on an individual who would be a czar, I would say, an intelligence czar, and would have the ability to say yay or nay on a person that I wish to bring in to head up intelligence. I think one of the strengths of the FBI is its independence. Always has been, always will be. The focus on facts and taking those facts wherever they lead you, even if it's into the White House. I would have some concern about that independence being undercut by having an intelligence czar having a say over who would fill a particular position in the FBI. It may well be that the person who fills that intelligence position is bringing news to the President, to the White House that they do not like to hear. But that is our job. It doesn't make any difference whether it's a criminal arena or in the intelligence arena. Our job is to give an independent, objective assessment of facts, whether it's an intelligence arena or the criminal arena.
And how about the budgetary?
I believe that when it comes to, I would have to think about the budget and what impact that might have on our independence. I would have to spend some time thinking about that.
Thank you very much.